If you control ProPresenter with Ableton Live, or you're considering controlling ProPresenter with Ableton Live, you need to stop what you're doing and watch this tutorial before you go any further, because everything with this whole process has changed. With the introduction of timecode support in ProPresenter, it's really made me rethink the whole process and make me wonder, is there a better way to do this? So in this tutorial, I'm going to explain what timecode is, 2, why having timecode support in ProPresenter matters, 3, give you a quick kind of get up and running as quickly as possible look at sending timecode from Ableton Live to ProPresenter, and then 4, and most importantly, I'm going to share the 2 most important things that you have to keep in mind at all times when working with timecode. Now, I've been talking about controlling ProPresenter with Ableton Live for 10 years. In fact, I looked earlier, November 27th, 2012 is when I created this video, the day that Renewed Vision released this feature. I remember just like yesterday, I was at my office at church, I called my wife and I said, hey, I'm gonna be a couple hours late because I've got to do a video for this. I released these MIDI cue files for Ableton Live, and as they say, the rest is history. And now, I don't think since November 27th, 2012, has there been an update to ProPresenter that's mattered more when it comes to automation and controlling ProPresenter with Ableton Live than that. Yes, there's been updates to MIDI cues. We've got some new MIDI cues. You know, surely making the MIDI module go away and making it a part of ProPresenter is huge. Surely the Windows PCs getting access to this was big, but nothing is as big as this. So first, let's talk about what timecode is. And if you know what timecode is, bear with me. This is going to be super quick, super short as possible. Timecode is essentially a set of data that's embedded in MIDI or an audio file that keeps things synchronized. So within timecode, there is hour, there's minute, there is second, and there is frame. And that information is meant to keep everything in sync. So imagine one master clock, if you will, that has the correct time, and every other device that's chasing that is going, oh, okay, it's this hour, it's this minute, it's this second, it's this frame, so that everything is in sync at the same time. We just went through a time change here in the US, and I went to bed and all the clocks in the house were in sync, and I woke up and my iPhone was ahead of the clock on the microwave, the clock in the car. Imagine if there was one thing that kept all those in sync at all time. Now, timecode is really powerful because it allows us to jump around in our song, jumping around in our arrangement, go ahead a minute, go back a minute, go ahead a couple seconds, behind a couple seconds. And if I'm sending timecode from Ableton Live while I'm making those changes, then the media desk that's playing video, the lighting desk that's controlling lights will stay perfectly in sync. Now, this matters in ProPresenter because we never had a really great solution for video before this. Our solution for video was drop video on a slide, play it from the video image bin, and basically send a MIDI cue to say start video. But then if we jumped around, if we stopped Ableton, the video would keep playing. All we really had was a start cue and a end cue. What timecode does is it fills in that space between so that I can jump from the chorus to the verse to the bridge, and my video is going to follow, not just my lyrics, which is super, super powerful. Now, like I mentioned at the beginning though, I think this is super important for programming lyrics because it's making me rethink, should I program all my lyrics this way? Yes, timecode and ProPresenter for video is super important, but I think it's also super important for lyrics. And I won't be able to get fully into that today, but I do just want to give you a couple ideas of how this could work and how we could quickly get up and running. Okay, so as promised, this is going to be a quick start guide. Most importantly, I'm going to share the 2 most important things you got to keep in mind with timecode. Number 1, let's talk about what we need to make this happen. And if we're going to use timecode with Ableton Live, then it's super important that we have timecode files. No need to stress. No need to worry. Head to FromStudioToStage.com/timecode. You can download my free timecode files. This is everything you need to get started with timecode. Now, you're probably going to want to go a step further. You're going to need a couple more frame rates. You're going to need full hour-long files at every different hour. If you're interested in that, then check out my full timecode LTC template. You can purchase this outright if you want to, but the best possible deal you can get is becoming a From Studio to Stage subscriber. You can head to FromStudioToStage.com/subscribe, and you can get that template for free with your credits that you get every single month. In addition to that, get courses, community, tons and tons of stuff. I don't have time to talk about it. But regardless, at the bare minimum, at least head to FromStudioToStage.com/timecode to download my free timecode template. Now, the second thing you're going to need a way to get audio out of Ableton Live into ProPresenter. Now, I beg you, I plead, do not overcomplicate this. Here's what I mean. Right now, How do you get audio out of Ableton Live? How do you get audio out of your Ableton computer to run tracks? Maybe that's Dante. Maybe that's a audio interface that's analog. Maybe it's an audio interface to some direct boxes, to a stage snake, to a front of house console. Think about that process, okay? And all we need to add to it is a way to make sure our ProPresenter computer can receive audio. The simplest, most straightforward way is an audio interface. That's the way I'm going to be doing that in this video. I've got an audio interface connected to my ProPresenter computer, and I'll talk about the routing in just a second. I've got an audio interface that's sending tracks from Ableton connected to my audio interface that's connected to ProPresenter. Now, in your setup, in your scenario, again, this may be Dante, this may be Maddie, this may be going out of an audio interface to a stage snake, whatever it is, just follow that normal process, but think I've also now got to get audio to ProPresenter. The easiest, most straightforward way is take an output from your audio console into an audio interface. Maybe not the most straightforward way, but probably the simplest. But if you're using Dante or something like that, this could work as well too. Now, don't get freaked out when we talk about timecode. Typically, we start talking about this and people say, but can I use timecode with Dante? Can I use timecode with Maddie? But Will, we're doing this, we're doing that scenario. Will timecode still work? It will, as long as you understand and remember the number one most important thing when it comes to using timecode. And I'll tell you what that is in just a second. But first, I want to ask you to consider subscribing to the channel. I post a brand new tutorial every single day at 10 a.m. Central. It's free to you. It's content that's going to help you get and or keep a gig if you don't already have it, to show you how to use Ableton Live to run tracks like a pro. So hit subscribe, enable the bell icon, and join me every single day, 10 a.m. Central for new content. Now, number one most important thing when it comes to working with timecode to remember is timecode, at least LTC, the audio version of timecode, is just audio. That's all it is. It's just an audio file. In fact, remember how I told you to go to fromstudiostage.com/timecode and download the timecode file? All you're downloading when you get that is audio files, but embedded within those audio files is hour, minute, second, and frame. Okay, and you'll see this applied in just a second. So again, don't overthink this. Don't freak out. But Will, we're using Maddie, but Will, we're using Dante. Great, you use it for audio now. Just add an extra output to your setup to get from your Ableton computer to your ProPresenter computer. Okay, let's move quickly. I'm gonna actually set this up in real time. You'll see this happen. Okay, so over in my Ableton computer, I'm gonna just go to a new live file here. I'm gonna go to my free timecode template to start, free timecode template that I got it from studiostage.com/timecode, and I'm gonna drag this timecode file in, okay? I'm gonna go to my audio output here, and we're gonna say external out, we're gonna go to output 1. I'm just thinking of this as like a normal thing. Audio interface connected, I want audio to go out of output 1. Now let's look at our setup here. Okay, this is my audio interface. There is output 1. Let's see if we can move this so you can see it. Okay, see output 1. I'm gonna go out of here. I need to get this to ProPresenter. Now for me, this is sitting on my desk in my studio. This is real easy, really straightforward. It's just a single audio cable that's going into a audio interface. For you, the distance between this audio cable may be 200 feet. It may be digital running over Ethernet. It may be 15 feet to a stage snake. It may be 5 feet to a direct box. It does not matter. Audio out of your computer normally, extra output for timecode. Nothing else can be on that channel. Timecode can't share with Click. It's got to be just timecode out of your computer. And then from there, you need to get to ProPresenter. Again, in my scenario, easiest way I think is have an audio interface for ProPresenter. Okay, let's start talking about setting this up in ProPresenter. Again, this is a quick start guide. If you want to go more in depth, become a From Studio Stage student, you could check out my updated ProPresenter course that's going to be going live in December. We talk about this really in depth, but let's just talk about how to make this happen quickly in ProPresenter. So over on the ProPresenter side, first thing you need to do is create a playlist, dedicate that to timecode. This could be a playlist every week that you update, but this is the playlist that has content in it that I want to use for timecode. Okay, so I added some files to this. Okay, now what I'm going to do is set up my timecode input. So I'm going to do View. I want to go to the timecode window here. A couple really important things that we have to remember in this window. But first thing, let's go to this settings icon here. We're going to choose our audio interface. In my case, it's Audio 4C. No matter, again, I'm belaboring this point, but you're using Dante, choose DVS, your AVIO adapter, whatever it is. Whatever your setup, your interface is, choose it here in ProPresenter, okay? Choose your input. In my case, it's channel 1 because it's physically channel 1 on the interface. And then number 2, the most important thing, when it comes to using timecode, remember we said number one is remembering that timecode is just audio, at least the LTC version of it is just audio. Treat it just like audio, don't be freaked out. Number two is it's important to make sure that your frame rates match. Frame rate has nothing to do with video. It has everything to do with what frame rate am I sending from Ableton Live and making sure all my devices are at that same frame rate, okay? So if I go to Ableton Live, you may not know this, but this timecode template here, I chose the 30 frame per second option and drop that into Ableton Live. So what's my frame rate that I'm working with here? Has nothing to do with video, it's 30 frames per second, okay? So in this option here, format, I'm gonna choose 30 frames per second. Now, based on where you are in the world, there may be a different standard. It does not matter though. As long as these match, I don't care what you pick, that's all that matters. Offset allows us to offset our value. We're not gonna mess with that now, okay? So let's get out of here. Now, the most important thing about this window, I 100% missed this the first time. I wish they made this a little clearer, a little easier, is most likely you don't see the word stopped here. This is most likely what you see is not engaged, okay? Now, this is not a commentary on your current marital status or dating status. It just means that timecode is not engaged. The timecode input in ProPresenter is not engaged, okay? So what you can do is click on this word here, and that's going to show up. You'll see a kind of visual representation of if you're getting timecode or if timecode is stopped. What I would suggest doing at this stage is just testing this out, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to press play in Ableton, okay? Let's press play over in Ableton. I'm gonna come back to ProPresenter. You'll see this is green because it's receiving timecode, and it's showing me the current timecode that it's receiving. If I stop timecode in Ableton, you'll see that timecode is stopped, okay? So again, make sure that you've chosen, gone from not engaged, clicked to engage that. Okay, let's move really quickly through the rest of this. Next thing, you wanna choose that playlist that you created, your timecode playlist. Again, you could name it whatever. You could have multiple playlists probably. I'm gonna choose that here, and you're gonna see all the timecode values I've assigned in ProPresenter listed below. If that's just too much to see, you could get rid of that. And I would suggest leaving your timecode window up here so you can always see this. Another kind of pro tip, I honestly didn't think about this till now. The nice thing about this is if you need to kill timecode support and go back to ProPresenter, you can just click this to disengage that. So that could be beneficial and helpful, again, if you have a ProPresenter operator and maybe there's elements where you want to make sure Ableton doesn't accidentally disengage or accidentally control it, then you can click that to enable and disable that, which is good. So, okay, back to ProPresenter. Now, we've got our timecode playlist here. I'm just using 5 different songs. I'm not doing any video stuff yet, but let me show you song 1. The way this works is we're going to be controlling the timeline for each of these songs. So what you want to do is go up here to the timeline button to see this, and you're going to just see an empty timeline that looks like this. Now, this is not a in-depth ProPresenter tutorial, but we can drag cues into our timeline, or we could record cues to our timeline. As a pro tip, I would suggest rendering the exact version that you're using in Ableton Live. We talk about this in the ProPresenter course. Rendering that from Ableton Live, sending that to your ProPresenter operators, having them drop that in the timeline here, and then programming cues to that, right? Which is really great. So you could record cues. What I'm gonna do for the sake of this, just really simply, is I'm just gonna drop cues on the timeline here. And I'm gonna make these cues as short as possible just so we can run through quite a few. So all I'm doing is just literally clicking and dragging, okay, between these. All right, so just clicking and dragging between these. So now let's test this out. Let's see if this works. What I need to do next is enable timecode for this and tell it exactly where in the timecode I want this to be. You're looking at that and going, well, Will, this song isn't an hour long. Does this mean when do I want this to start at the time of day? No, it means where in the timecode file do I want this song to be, okay? As a simple hack, as a simple thing to remember, what I suggest is using a different hour for each song in your set list. So if you look at each of my songs here, I have hour 1 for song 1, hour 2 for song 2, hour 3 for song 3, hour 4 for song 4, and hour 5 for song 5. Just real easy, simple way to do this. For now though, we're testing with our free timecode template. So what you get for that is hour 1. So what I'm gonna do here, again, is enable this. I'm gonna set this to be hour 1, which basically that means, hey, when you receive hour 1, I want you to start playing the timeline. And as the timeline moves or receives timecode, I want the timeline to move and stay perfectly in sync. So let's just test this, okay? So we see that this is enabled, right? It's engaged. Timecode is currently stopped. I'm just going to press play in Ableton to start at the beginning. You'll see that it's playing, and watch our cues here, okay? So you can see we're changing cues, and we're changing cues based on where the timecode is in Ableton Live, okay? So here's going to come Q2 in just a second. What's nice about this, let me jump back to Ableton for a second. Let's jump back here, like I think this would be kind of slide 2-ish. Let's jump back, show you ProPresenter. You see once it reaches that point of the timecode, it immediately jumps back. This is why, again, I said this isn't just cool for video. This changes everything for me for programming lyrics, because one, I no longer have to program lyrics. I just give this to someone else to say, here's the audio file, drop it in, program to it in ProPresenter. I just drop the timecode file and that's all I have to do. Less work, I'm happy. So yeah, great job, Renewed Vision, on that. But the other thing that's nice about this is if I jump in between a measure, right, at the start of my song section, I have a cue to go to a lyric. At the end of that song section, maybe I have a cue to go to another lyric. What if I jump like in between there and I'm in between a section? Maybe I don't jump exactly at the start of a section. What do we do there? I have some hacks that show you kind of a way to cheat it and trick it into doing it. But with timecode, no matter where I jump, whatever slide is in that section on the timeline, if I jump right here, it's kind of hard to see, but if I jump right here in that section, it's going to go to that slide. So this is huge. This is massive. Now, again, quick start guide. So I'm going to go quickly. If you want to go in depth, check out the course. How do we do multiple songs? Okay. Let's talk about this really quickly. So as I said over in ProPresenter, this is song 1, hour 2, 3, 4, and 5. So what I'm going to do, again, we're working quickly. I'm going to go into Ableton and I'm just going to say, okay, let's make this song 1. Okay. We'll add some locators here. Let's make this song 2. Okay. Let's make this song 3. And then let's make this song 4, okay? Now, so I've got my 4 songs in here. Now I'm gonna go to my full template, still at 30 frames per second. I'm gonna take hour 1 and drop that in here. We're gonna take hour 2 and drop that for song 2, hour 3, drop that for song 3, and hour 4 for song 4, okay? So each one of my songs in Ableton Live has the hour that represents its order in the set list. Now, I'm going to press play. I'll take you into ProPresenter. We're going to keep watching our timecode window here. Okay, so let's press play, take it into ProPresenter. You'll see we're receiving hour 1. Oh, actually we're receiving hour 0. So you see nothing is triggering there. So that's a goof on my part. Let's go back to Ableton and let's nudge this over. Let's actually take hour 1. There we go. And let's move these over, hour 2 and 3 and then 4. Okay, so now let's try this. This is why this window is so nice, because I immediately went, that should have an hour there. It's not working. And again, people get tricked out, kind of tripped up with this. I just looked and go, oh, I'm not sending the right thing. That's why it's not working. It's not that everything in the world is going wrong. It's just I'm a dummy and sent the wrong thing. So now let's press play in Ableton. Let's press stop and let's watch it and let's see what happens. Okay, so press play. There we go. Hour 1. So you see song 1 is playing. We're going to get to slide 2 here in a second. And I'll show you in Ableton. This is still trekking along. Here in a second, we're going to go to song 2. So let me show you. Let's watch ProPresenter. Watch what happens. Now we get to song 2. Obviously, we changed to a terrible template. And you see this cranking along. But now we're on this song here. And that's going. Okay. Song 3 is going to happen in just a second. You'll see it jump right now. Okay. Now we're on to our next song. Once I go to this next song, it restarts the timeline because I'm at hour 3 and 0 minutes. Okay. Another in the fire. This one actually hasn't been programmed, so it's just running the timeline. But if I stop, you'll see it stops. Now, what's cool about this, let's jump back to song 2. Okay, so I'm in song 2 in Ableton. Let's show you that. So see how I selected song 2. In a second, I'm going to press play, but I'm going to take you back here. Okay, let's go to All Because of Christ. This is song 2. Once I press play, you see our timecode swaps over and it starts at the very beginning and it's triggering whatever is in this timeline, and this timeline is going to stay perfectly in sync, which is really, really cool. Okay, so that is a look at sending timecode from Ableton Live to Control ProPresenter. Again, it's just a quick start. It's not everything. I know we didn't talk about video and using video in ProPresenter, but it's a very similar process using the timeline. I want to wrap up really quickly with a couple things to keep in mind that are super important that will give you a success when working with timecode. Number one, again, remember timecode is audio. audio. It's going to go down the same path as everything else. Make sure that it's got a separate output from Ableton. Make sure that that output gets to Timecode and it's not to ProPresenter, and it's not too loud, it's not too quiet. It's again, check your gain just like you would anything else. Don't stress about it, it's just audio, but make sure that gets to ProPresenter just loud enough, but not too loud and not too quiet. Again, make sure it's got its own separate output. Don't mix it with click, it's gotta be separate. Make sure that your timecode file in Ableton Live is unwarped. If you get the timecode template from me, and you have auto warp long samples disabled, then that's going to drop right into Ableton Live and will be unwarped. So make sure it's unwarped in Ableton Live. Again, if you're working with multiple songs, consider using the hour method that I mentioned, which is song 1 is hour 1, song 2 is hour 2, song 3 is hour 3. That's going to just make it really, really easy to program. Again, if you're working with someone else that's going to be programming, I would highly suggest rendering out a full version of your song, including your count in. Make sure you unmute click so they can hear it. Have them drop that into Ableton Live and actually program and trigger slides in real time if they want. If you're working with video, same thing. Make sure you send the video person that's making the video the exact version of that from Ableton Live. And if you follow those couple tips, you're gonna have success in doing this. I'm super excited to Renewed Vision for releasing this feature, adding timecode support to ProPresenter. I can't wait to see what they do in the future. Again, as a reminder, if you want to get my full template for free, become a From Studio Stage subscriber. You'll also see the brand new ProPresenter course once it goes live in December. And if you want to get access to those free timecode files, head to fromstudiostage.com/timecode. And then finally, if you want to see content like this every single day for free, then hit the subscribe button, enable the bell icon so you see when I go live every single day at 10 a.m. Central. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye.